Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of 1 Samuel. Today we are in 1 Samuel chapter 28, and we are now near the very end of the life of Saul and the situations that are going to occur leading up to his death. And so as we come into chapter 28, we see an overflow from the events of chapter 27. And then we see Saul going and consulting a medium, or as some translations will put it, a witch, to try to get information. Let's look at some things that we can see here in 1 Samuel chapter 28. When you examine the first few verses of the chapter and you're getting into the introduction and kind of that follow through from chapter 27, one of the first things that you find is that David's deception is complete. David is going to completely enfold himself into Achish's trust, because when Achish goes to lead his portion of the Philistine army, and he goes to bring those people in, he tells David to come along, and he tells David in verse number 2, therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever. David has ingratiated himself to Achish by lying to him about what he is doing, about where he is raiding. Remember, the Philistines are invading Israel. And David has been telling Achish that he's been raiding in Judah and that he's been raiding in the southlands of the allies of Israel and things of that nature. And so Achish firmly and fully believes that David is invested in destroying his own people. So David's 600 men are going to travel with the Philistines. They are going to go and be a part of the upcoming battle, or ostensibly they will be. And Achish has complete and utter confidence in David, even though it's all built on a lie. David has never had any intention of destroying his own people, and therefore he will not be participating in this battle that is upcoming. Yet David has fully and completely fooled Achish. The second thing I want us to notice is found down in verse number 12. And that is the medium's surprise. When Saul tries to get an answer from God and God does not answer Saul, Saul is panicked as to what to do. And we've seen Saul panic in the face of the Philistines several times previously, leading back to his earliest days as king. But here, Saul is going to panic and he wants some kind of information. Remember, Samuel is now dead. And so Saul is going to go, since God won't answer him, Saul is going to go to this medium at Endor, which is somebody that he had previously cast out, somebody that he had said was not supposed to be there. They'd put on him the punishment of death if they were ones who were found working these things, or saying that they worked these things. And he goes to her and he asks her to bring up Samuel so that he can talk to him, to have a seance as far as that part of it goes. And it's interesting, the most fascinating part of it is in verse 12 when you see the woman's reaction when Samuel appears. Because it's not by her power that this takes place, but rather verse 12 says that when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. There is nobody that is more surprised at Samuel's arrival than the medium, because this doesn't normally happen. This isn't the way that it works, because she doesn't have the power that she claims she does. Instead, it is God utilizing Samuel to give this final message to Saul. And that final message, when you boil it all down to its common parts, is going to be found down in verse number 19. But there Samuel tells Saul that by tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Saul here is going to learn a prophetic statement that this time the Philistines are going to win. This time, the Philistines are going to overcome the army of Israel. This time, not just his army, but he himself is going to be lost in the battle. And not only him, but his sons as well. We're not actually going to get to the battle that takes place the next day until chapter 31. But here, the promise is made. Saul has been going everywhere trying to find an answer. And the answer that he's gotten is not one that he is going to like. And it's certainly not the answer that he was looking for. You know, sometimes when people are not doing God's will, when people are not living according to God's word, when things start going poorly, they all of a sudden begin looking for and asking what God says about their situation or about their condition or about this, that, or the other. And oftentimes they wind up feeling exactly like Saul when it comes to how they respond or what they feel when they hear the truth. It's not always as good as what everybody says it's going to be. You know, there are people that think that only good things happen when you go to God. And yet sometimes, when people have gone to God to find out what God said and what God wanted, the message has not been good. It has been honest and truthful and just and righteous. We need to understand that God is going to give us the truth. We also need to understand that our previous actions impact our current condition in the same way that they did with Saul. There was a reason Saul didn't have access to God, and God would not speak to him directly. It's because of his actions over the previous 40 years of his life. What we do has consequences. The way that we do it has consequences. Sometimes those consequences are good, sometimes they're bad. But we can't go through life thinking we can do whatever we want and there will be no consequence for it. These are some of the things that I found in chapter 28. I hope that they're beneficial to you. Next time, we will come back and we'll begin looking at 1 Samuel chapter 29. But until then, have a great day.